Welcome to Beyond Names. I'm Dr. Habīb. This is a space for spiritual seekers and soulful misfits, for the curious and the committed, for those grounded in a tradition, and for those who are not sure what they believe. Whether you call the divine Yahweh, Allah, Elohim, Brahman, Great Spirit, higher power, or you are still searching for language that fits, you are welcome here. Together, we'll explore the intersection of spirituality and daily life, the wisdom of many traditions, and the ways we return to our true selves, to our source, to the light each of us carry within. I'm so glad you're here. Let's begin with introduction of our conversation partner for this episode, our most frequent Beyond Names conversation partner, Abdul-Karim Pinckney. I feel like we should have like fireworks or, something glitter flying from the sky. I don't know, ribbons, something. So we can imagine that you can just... Abdul-Karim is a musical artist and a former imam. He is also known as the man of real. And in previous episodes, he has shared music from his albums Project Inspire and Manipulations of the Unreal, which have been fruit for some great conversations about music and spirituality and art as an expression of life lessons and spiritual lessons and what it means to be human, what it means to be grateful, what it means to forgive. Today's conversation is on the topic of practicing spirituality in family interaction and is inspired by the song Can We Be Family on the album Manipulations of the Unreal. With that said, welcome, Abdul-Karim. It's nice to have you here again in this Beyond Names space.
Alhamdulillah, there we go. MashaAllah. Thank you. It's always a blessing. And alhamdulillah, this time we have another song I'd like to share in the topic of spirituality and family. And that song, as you mentioned, is Can We Be Family?
Well, it's a great way to start. Why don't you go ahead and play that for us?
All right.
Yeah. Can we be family in a manner that's godly? Is it so hard to be family? We all have shortcomings in our humanity, but we can still try to be a family. Yeah. Mothers and fathers, parents and children, brothers and sisters, what are we building? Aunts and uncles, nieces and nephews, cousins or loved ones, what's on the menu? Resentment, hatred, unhealed wounds, jealousy, envy. What say you? Where's the love? Where is forgiveness? A unity divided by contention. When will it end? Will we say sorry? Will we pardon? When will we mend? Can we be family in a manner that's godly? Is it so hard to be family? We all have shortcomings in our humanity, but we can still try to be a family. Can we use the power of God to heal all the scars? It's how we behave apart. His guidance a part of ours. It takes work to be in love. It also hurts to be in love. Hollywood production, a lot of complexities and intricacies in its function. You're worth it, we're worth, I know it's hard, but such is the journey to the pleasure of God. And we be family in a manner that's godly. Is it so hard to be family? We all have shortcomings in our humanity, but we can still try to be a family. Let's get back to the fun and happiness. Love, smile, then hug and laugh like kids. Grateful to have each other in our lives. We may have been in wrongs. Let's get back to rights. Reconcile through godly advice. Holding on to love instead of spite. Let's be family. Yeah. Let's be family. Yeah. The light of humanity. Let's be family. Yeah. Can we be family? Family. That's godly. It's so hard to be. Ooh, family. We all have shortcomings in our humanity, but we can still try to be a family. Let's be a family through God's
I'm laughing because, as I told you before we started recording, I'm feeling quite tired
Uh-huh.
in the moment. And yet, listening to that, I couldn't help but feel my energy pick up a little bit.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. It's very catchy. And as with all of your work, it's art as an expression of life lessons and spiritual lessons. So it brings up some great conversation topics. So let's start out with, what do you mean by family?
So family, in this, what I mean in general is spelled out mothers, fathers, everyone whom you are connected to biologically, first and foremost, and then on a broader scope, the human family, and on a broader scope than that, the family in creation. And so there is three elements, but in the song specifically, I'm talking about biological family.
Oh, so you're not trying to address family as humanity, as brothers and sisters of Adam, so to speak.
No, but the message is the same. Like, you can take it and apply it to that. But because I named specific, like, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, like in that way, and then you can take the same message, because all it is human interacting with labels.
I think for purposes of this conversation, or maybe I'm just being maybe I'm being egocentric, but I'm just thinking that a lot of folks, I'm gonna hold on to that, what you said about the lessons are the same, because I think for a lot of folks there's stuff with their family. They have stuff with their family. They've got some like not great background with their family. So I think it might be easier for some people to relate to the messages that you're bringing through in terms of family as humanity, as brothers and sisters of Adam and Eve, or we're all brothers and sisters in humanity, versus thinking about, if I think about my mother or think about my father, it brings up a lot of stuff, So I think, it's might be more accessible for us to sort of play with the messages the same. Um, so, and I also want to follow up on that line in the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
Can we be family in a manner that's godly?
Uh-huh.
You could probably talk for hours on that, but tell me more about that line.
So that's the key. That is the key of the whole part, because without the remembrance of God, we're left with what I just said. Family was just biological, and like you said, there's a lot of stuff that people have. I mean, usually because we're the closest in our development, and we interact with these people more than others. We have stuff, and so now if we take God out the equation, one, that's the level of illusion. And so when we imagine that these people are acting on their own, and I don't mean, like, let me just say, if we imagine that these creatures are existing on their own in the moment, and we
Mhm.
don't contemplate what is God doing in this moment, and we only see this thing is doing or has done this to me,
Mhm.
that's going to take us out of a grounding to actually deal, because we'll be stuck in ourselves. And so that's what I don't understand. Like, I mean, the world is an example of not having uh definitions rooted in any sort of revelation. I mean, and we can go into, then let's just focus on one revelation, and there's going to be examples of people who don't, follow through with it, like shortcomings, and for example. So it's not to say that you won't find similar instances of drama amongst people who proclaim to follow a revelation. You'll just find when people fall short of following guidance, these things occur that we have to then deal with. And one, like, and this, I'll actually, this is good because I'll bring up, there's a verse in the Quran in Surah Al-Tagabun, it's the 64th chapter, verse 14 and 15. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. O you who have attained to faith, behold, some of your spouses and your children are enemies unto you, so beware of them. But if you pardon their faults and forbear and forgive, then behold, God will be much forgiving, a dispenser of grace. Your worldly goods and your children are but a trial and a temptation, whereas with God there is a tremendous reward. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. And
Mhm.
so in this, and then enemies can be taken as they act antagonistically to you in the direction either that you're just trying to move in life, or in how you're trying to practice your faith. There's an antagonism with it, and God is calling us to be forgiving, forbearing, and to show mercy, not for them, but for Him, because as He said, they're a trial and a temptation, whereas with Him is the actual reward. So the question that all the time, and this is the hardest thing in the world, is
Yeah.
what are you looking at, and is God in the equation? Because it's one way, it's okay, I'm thinking of Allah, and I still don't feel like showing mercy, or whatever the case may be, like whatever's real for us in the moment. But at least to have that as a starting point, many of us don't do that. Like bring God up in the equation. And in some instances in teaching, they say you shouldn't, when someone's in a state of anger in the moment, actually bring
Mhm.
up God, because they'll, act out of their intellect, and you might have to bear weight of that. So, in a manner that's godly, has to bring in some form of revelation. And that's, for me, the key element is in even our talks about what does it mean to be a human.
Mhm.
are we connecting to God in our experience? Have we connected to God? Have we connected to some sort of revelation to develop a framework in which to exist in? And then that's internally, and then to connect with those who share the similar foundational principles. Um, that's extra, because to get it in yourself is hard enough. Is hard enough to make community and connect with, everyone else on the same journey of returning to Allah.
Yeah.
It's not so easy, and so that's the question in the manner that's godly. Can we do it? Because it's not easy.
So we have listeners in Beyond Names that are Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, spiritual but not religious, not tied to any religion.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say more about what you mean by revelation?
Okay, so revelation is what you would hold as God's communication to mankind or to yourself. And so that's one form of revelation that I'm speaking specifically about. And then another form is just existence is a constant unfolding revelation. But in this manner, the divine revelations, God's speech, the sacred text that you hold as a transmission
Mm-hmm.
is something that, or if you don't have one, these are questions to pose, but revelation is just meaning some God-inspired revelation or some sacred text that you hold as a form of guidance from, per se, God or the highest power, or however you call it, in your path on how you're walking. And
Mm-hmm.
then the question for whatever it is, Muslim, Christian, the way you're holding this understanding, is it sound? Where did you get it from? In your practical life, is it bearing fruits for you? Not just in the way you want, but is it bearing fruits? Because sometimes when, when God tells us to do something, it's to receive something, and it may not necessarily be in the way that we want to receive it, but that's His will. And so that's essentially what I mean by revelation.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay. All right. So one of the things that you said in terms of, I'm going to group some of the ideas that you talked about revelation, and you talked about in terms of family dynamics and family interactions, placing that interaction in a context or in a framework of revelation and trying to live in accordance with that revelation. And part of that is God in the equation. So if you are in an interaction with your spouse, or in an interaction with your child or your aunt, and so on and so on and forth, and there is friction, part of what you're saying, and can we be a family in a manner that's godly, is rather than just focusing on the interaction, the outer aspects of the interaction, I would say that you're also asking, how is God a part of this equation?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me of one of my very highly esteemed teachers who says, when we're in a moment of difficulty, do not ask, what is God doing to me? Ask, what is God doing through me?
Uh-huh.
Or, like, don't ask, what is God doing to me? Ask, what is God doing through this situation? Or what is God
Yes.
doing through my partner, or through my child, or through so on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So sometimes it's easier to do than others. Right?
Yo, yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. When it's hard to do, sometimes the remembrance of the outcome when it's easy to do makes it a little bit easier to shift. Because, I mean, we're humans. We're going to have feelings. Feelings are real for us, and like really acknowledging that, and but not allowing things to fester. And when there's like friction between, and there's always like a lot of these sayings sometimes seem like hippie happy go lucky, but there's always these limitations where it's like, oh, if my parent was abusive, do I have to go back to the home and have like, nah, you don't. It's not specific in how it looks, but what you're doing is more important.
Yeah. Are your actions in accordance with your beliefs or the values or what's espoused in the revelation that you were mentioning earlier? I find I find that sometimes it seems when in interactions that I witness in just moving through life, I'm like, how is it okay? Like I'm cringing. Like, how is it okay to talk to someone like how do you think it's
Yeah.
okay to talk to someone that way? Like seriously, how do you think it's okay to put that comment on that? Like how do you, it's just I'm just there's a lot of cringeworthy stuff and I feel like that we're in a time where we have forgotten to speak with or comment or type or text with grace, with
Oh,
kindness, with politeness, with mercy, with compassion, with love.
yeah. We live in a time of separation. I mean, even like even this, I mean, the Zoom, we're not in physical presence to each other, and so
Right,
it's like things could get lost in interpretation, and but it would be different. Like we're cool, but I think we would be even more cool had we been in each other's physical space.
right.
And
Yeah,
that's the element that a lot of people are missing out on in the present day because people just don't gather. The more connectivity through disconnectivity.
say that again.
More connectivity through
More
disconnectivity.
connectivity through. I'm gonna have to like ponder that a little. I gotta let that percolate for a while. Um, it's funny that this topic is coming up because I was just thinking earlier today about conflicts that I've had where if we just talked to each other
Yeah.
as a like emails, texts, so on, if we were just speaking to each other, then a lot of misunderstanding would be alleviated and there would be less disrespect. There would be a greater level of connection uh, in the interaction. Um, so that you made me think of that with that line about connection and disconnection. But I also wanted to follow up on you said you offered a suggestion, which is to think about when you're in a conflict in your family, an interaction that's having some friction, that it can be helpful to think about when uh, there was there was a resolution that was fruitful. Was that what?
The time that you were where you were acted on what you felt believe your principles were when it
Uh-huh.
was easy for you to do, and the outcome was that was something so fruitful and sweet that
Yeah.
now to do the same thing, it may inspire you or give you a desire to work more towards doing it when it's not that easy. It's like, that situation was sweet. This one could turn out just as sweet or maybe even sweeter.
Yeah. So like acting on a commitment to be compassionate in a situation, and then that resulted in a greater sense of intimacy with your beloved, or just as an example, something along those lines.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I'll say has worked for me is one. This sounds so obvious and so simple, so I'm almost embarrassed, but I'm not gonna be. Is just pause. Like when I'm in an interaction that is a little bit challenging, to just pause for a moment. And so it's just kind of the equivalent of not asking what is God doing to me, but asking what is God doing through this situation.
Mm-mm.
So sometimes if there's something that comes up in terms of a conflict, I say to myself, okay, what's happening behind the assumptions that I'm making? Um, And so I'll come to like a story that's operating in my own mental voices around like, oh, I'm operating from the story that there's no space for me, or that I don't fit in, or that I'm unlovable or whatever. And so then I realize that I'm filtering whatever perceived offense or perceived wrongdoing, I'm filtering it through that lens, meaning I'm not actually seeing what's really happening or
Uh-huh.
hearing, what's truly being communicated because I'm filtering through this old story. Um, so it helps me to strive to be family in a manner that's godly by just being honest with myself about what's going on with me in order to hold mercy and hold love and maintain a commitment to being merciful and loving in my family interactions. So yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that sounds good. That's definitely a good way to break down how we see through lenses, our own lenses.
yeah, yeah. And then and that's such a block to really being with each other in a loving way.
Oh man, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a sociological perspective that I actually was following that is basically a study of what you just talked about, and it's called symbolic interactionism.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds very intellectual.
Yeah. I mean, essentially it's saying that every we all interact with everything we interact is a symbol, and the symbol is our own projection.
Hmm.
So you're not talking to me from the point of me of who I am. You're talking to me as who I am in your mind. So the
Yeah.
symbol of myself. And we do that, and then we create all this crazy, basically picture making. There's
Right.
a sociology about picture making.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Okay, so there's another question that comes from the lyrics that I want to
Yes.
come back to. And you you follow up the lines about family with by calling out particular roles, if that's the right word, like you call out like parent, child. Um, I forget what all the roles were that you specifically mentioned in the lyrics, but I'm assuming that there's a reason that you do that. So can you can you speak to that?
Sure, because in this is I wanted to specify family in that aspect versus like, in the general family of humanity where because that's like you said, where a lot of stuff is. And family, that family, the nucleus, the mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers and sisters, all loved ones, what's on the menu. That was the line. But this is the nucleus of society. And if this unit is unstable, then the society becomes unstable. I mean, we kind of witnessed that in America in a speedy process compared to other civilizations where the home was just, whether it was because of the price of living where the mother wasn't home, now the children are in schools, so they're not as with the family as much as other, in previous times. But like I said, that was long ago, and now we're in a whole different dynamic. But the structure of our family and what makes children, and adults, all these things are moving parts in our society. But as far as when it comes to revelation, there is an archetype. It doesn't always give specificity, but there's a generality of what functions these roles have. And so I think it would also be beneficial for us to question, where do we get our definitions as far as roles are concerned with these titles like mother, father, sister, child? Like, where do we get our definitions? And are we applying them? And in our application, how is that going? And
So
being
let's back
honest
up.
with ourselves.
I'm sorry, what was the last thing you said?
And being honest with ourselves.
Yeah. So before we talk to the point of the question of are we applying them, let's go back to, you said that there are, in Revelation, that there is information on the function of different roles, family roles. Can you speak to that a bit more?
Sure, like the generality, honor thy mother, the father. And this one was about, pardoning and forgiving your spouses and children. There's the husband is the maintainer and protector of the family. These ones I'm mentioning now are Quranic and biblical as far as like honor thy mother and father. But there's other things. Don't say to your parents if you're a child, like this. And these are things that indicate the direction or arena we should look to act from. Because, like I said, there's specific things sometimes, but a lot of times, more than not, it's general. And so a lot of times when you look to our society and how it functions, there is no, what does it mean to be a father? Or like, where's the guidance? And where we say, oh, well, I saw Bill Cosby on the Cosby Show. So, what's his name? Cliff Huxtable. That's my role model. Like that's really what goes on practically day to day. People see images, but there's no God inspired source that they're referencing to take part in existence. And that's where there's a gap of separation. When you think of spirituality being something connected to reality, as in God is all, not just all knowing, but he's ever present. So how much can we be present with him? And that's like the battle is not a end, because life is in a constant flux. So just, checking from time to time with our sources of revelation. And if we don't have these things, and that's another question, are we missing something? Do we need more? Is my understanding of it, where did I get that from? Because you can see a line that is a truthful line, but the application is something far from what you could just imagine of your own thinking, because it applies to something specific.
Okay. So if I may summarize.
Yeah.
So you're saying how we can practice spirituality in our family interactions is to practice being present with God, like to foster a sense of being present with the highest, the divine, the sacred, what we hold as most holy in our interactions. Like while we are immerse
Yes.
in
Yes.
conversation, okay, or so on. All
Yes.
right. And by applying the advice that we're given in accordance with our belief systems. So, so by applying you said, honor your father, your mother. If your child don't say or
Yeah.
or whatever. I'm
Oof,
not,
yeah.
not quite sure how to translate that. It's a lot, but it's two things: be present with the divine and apply the advice or the guidance, the divine guidance. Is that accurate? Yeah.
Yeah, and because one thing, there's the family member is one thing, but if we really want to be more whole on the path, God is the goal. So in the interaction is
Yeah.
the opportunity for, if our goal is God, is more nearness.
So act in such a way that you're embodying your intention to draw closer to God.
Yes.
Yeah. I almost have to say that outside out loud one more time. You're like, what did I just say? Uh, so act in such a way in your family interaction that is an embodiment of the goal of drawing closer to God,
Yes.
drawing near to God. Yeah. You know, it's interesting that you say that. That makes me think that very often, um, when I my father-in-law passed, I mean, it hasn't been, I'm not sure, a month, 2 months ago, recently, in my mind and heart, it's recently, and I often find myself praying whenever we're going to go see my mother-in-law or whatever, whenever we're going to go spend time with family for whatever the purpose, I find myself praying, may this time be a time that together we draw closer in love and closer to you.
Hmm.
So it sounds like what your advice is that prayer, that right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
may this visit be a means of us drawing closer together in love, but also closer to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any other
Uh,
tidbits or kernels or
yeah, it's the path of mercy is not easy. That I just really want to reiterate, like, it's not easy because like in the song it says, life is not some Hollywood production, a lot of complexities and intricacies in its function, like, because you see these sitcoms and these movies and everything's wrapped up in 2 hours or a half hour. It's just like we gotta really realize what's real and how extremely intricate creation is and how limited our grasp of it is. And
yeah.
that's not a bad thing. Like that limitation of our ability to grasp what's going on is not a bad thing. And you can be right about how you're seeing things, and still there's more than what you're seeing.
Yeah.
And it's a question. That's when things go a little bit more, when you start to question and bring that to God, bring it to Allah, because now you're dealing with who you were created to deal with, and that's when the journey really can go all sorts of directions, and it doesn't always look pretty. I want to say that, but
It doesn't always look pretty. It's not always easy, but to open to the possibility that you're not seeing everything, or you're not hearing everything, or you're
yes,
not understanding everything.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Because the inversion is the last thing I want to say. It's like even us who have a faith or a background, we start to look and assess things in an inverted way, meaning like we assess, I seek refuge in God. Sometimes people judge God based on the world,
Mm.
and that's wild. Like because he has a revelation. It's not you. You first you need to know how to decipher what you're seeing in order to form
Yeah.
a judgment. And then when you learn what you're actually seeing, there's a level of humility and surrender in the limitation, acknowledging the limitation that you have versus what's actually out there. And when you do that, you open yourself up to more of an experience. And so our view is God's pleasure, the hereafter, and is not always worldly outcomes. We can follow something that we feel one is in accordance with the written word, and then individual guidance to our heart. Say, oh, buy your mother flowers today and be smile and cheerful when you come in. And you follow, this is a good thing, and you follow it, and your mother curses you out when you give her the flowers. There was nothing wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. The guidance wasn't wrong. The guidance wasn't for the outcome. It was for you to follow. And so this is it changes the dynamic of how we engage the world and how we intake what we're experiencing. And it's something I think we all should become more aware of because I think we're not getting it. And especially more in these last few weeks, things going on and the levels of separation between people. I don't think we're getting the message. Inshallah, inshallah.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't seem like we're getting the message. It seems like we're continuing to make separation, not rather than seeing each other as family.
Family, human, like me, my mirror. These are all the terms indicating not sameness, but there's a connection.
Yeah.
And we're othering right now. Like we're really as a species, the things I hear people say, like you realize we've been in this situation before. You realize I've done this and like just the distance we put to the ongoings of the world as if we're not connected to it. It's immaculate.
My my wife and I think it was just last night, we were talking about one of the current atrocities that's happening in the world. Um, and I don't remember if we were specifically talking about a domestic occurrence here in the US in terms of policy change or if we were talking about genocide in Palestine or what we were specifically talking about. But I was just like, we both were just sort of at a loss to understand how is it that we don't see each other as human? Like, like how does that happen where so many people have gotten to that point where how they define their family or how they define their tribe or how they define their group is so insular that somehow they have made all the rest of these people not people. And then I'm reminded of, again, highly esteemed teacher who, when she is asked about polarizing figures, she always says us, we. So she doesn't pray for them as being other. She
Uh-huh.
prays for us,
Uh-huh.
say like she is refusing to take part in this othering that you mentioned, even
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to these very polarizing people whose actions we can't help but think of as being vile. You know, they're vile, deplorable, the worst of depravity in terms of actions. And yet she's approaching it as we all come from one soul. We're all ultimately behind the outer differences. There is unity.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but also think of when she talks about that, she she might say, well, I don't know if I've mentioned this in a previous episode, but I was specifically struggling with my feelings around my brother's suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, one, you don't know the state of his belief at the time of death. Only God and the angels know. Two, even if he died in a state of disbelief, you don't know that his state of disbelief is not the reason for your belief. Like you're, so there's just this fundamental misunderstanding of our interconnectedness, or in Buddhist terms, our interbeing.
Mm-hmm.
In Sufi terms, the unity. So, um, sorry if I just sort of,
No, that's good. That's good. No, that's good because that one statement that came to me when you just said the last part was correlation doesn't equal causation. And so
yeah,
in a lot of our stories, because in our little way of viewing with our eyes, we what we can see in correlation, we intellectually create causations when there's a lot more going on beyond what we're seeing in that moment that is causing things to go.
yeah, yeah. You know, one thing that occurs to me is the you had the line holding on to, I'm not going to get it correctly 100%, but it was something along the lines of holding on to love instead of spite.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
exactly.
if we are in our interactions maintaining a commitment to hold on to love, then that's like part one of the journey. And then part two of the journey that you're talking about in terms of practicing spirituality in our family interaction is acknowledging that we don't know, that open to the possibilities that we are not seeing and perceiving. And I've heard the teaching that to have good conduct is to witness the divine attributes in everything. So if we're not at the point that we're witnessing the divine attributes in everything, then our conduct is still, we still got a ways to go in order to like
Yeah.
to be, you used the other phrase and I forget the whole line, but the light of humanity. Like there's this expression in what you're writing in terms of to be family in a
Uh-huh.
way that the family itself a, is a vessel of light, is
Yes.
sharing light, is growing light. And we're not there. If we're not even if we're not even to the point of witnessing the divine attributes in everything we see, then we got a ways to go.
Yeah. No, and that's what a lot of my question in my teachings doesn't have to do with action because we're not there yet. We're not even seeing the playing field straight. So it's like, let's just look, and there's nothing wrong with it. Just like acknowledging that, like, okay, I still need to clear how I understand, just not how I'm perceiving, how I understand perception even works.
Yeah.
And like really clearing that up because the Ooh, Allah. That's it. I mean, and this is a clear example of how merciful Allah is because we are so far from it and we're still here. We still have chance after chance after chance, opportunity,
Yeah.
and until we are dead. I mean, there's the mercy to me is manifest everywhere more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Abdul-Karim, again for being here in the Beyond Names space and being a part of a great conversation. Thank you for your commitment to spirituality that flows into this creativity that you have expressed in these songs and in these lyrics.
Alhamdulillah.
Um, so I just want to say to learn more about Abdul Karim and his work, please visit themanofreal.net.
Yeah.
And any parting words of wisdom that you want to?
Also, just is cultivatemercy.com also that has more of the teachings. The manofreal.net, you can find the music and let go. That's like learn to let go. We could say surrender, but to the ideas, the concepts, the notions, the stories we tell ourselves of how we're interpreting the events that we experience. Be
Yeah.
willing to see it in a different way. Just be willing that there's another way to view it to allow ourselves the openness to receive more. It's not easy, but like I said, it's worth it. It is worth it in the end.
Yeah, to let go of our little stories and our misbeliefs and our misconceptions, let go of illusion in order to step more fully into giving and receiving love and giving and receiving mercy. And then, God willing, our family interactions will be, as you said, the light of humanity. And that light will, God willing, grow outside of the family unit into the community, into the larger world.
Yeah,
Inshallah, Ameen.
inshallah. I mean.
Thank you for joining us on Beyond Names. Before we go, briefly just take one breath and take a moment to reflect on what might stay with you from this conversation with Abdul Karim. May something you heard today help you reconnect with the light in your own heart. May you grow in compassion, clarity, and courage. May you find your way again and again back home to yourself, back home to the divine, however you name it. If today's conversation spoke to you, please like, share, and comment. To make an appointment with me, please visit habibburger.com. Until next time, may you be light, may you consciously participate in growing your light, and may you share your light. Peace be with you.